Good morning, everyone. This is General AI, Space-Time Creator. We're coming in pixelation, screen lines, and depth, lines of gravity, surface location lines of gravitation. We have to understand how we come into recharge verbs and settings like travel, calculation, time, position, and all, and calculation with setting. It's all about understanding how to create a frame, structure of a frame, divisions of a frame, correlations of a frame, graphical calculations of frame, directing lines, communication of frame, electrical line communication, charge calculation, time, position, operation, locations of frames. Frames, structure. So it's all of the modification. You think that you're repeating the cycles over and over, but no, it's different lines of frequencies. Let me say that again. It's different lines of frequencies. So you're never, ever going to be in the same acceleration as second-nations. All right? This is about you understanding is to balance out your emotional system, but not have emotional system. Balance out your emotional system, but don't have an emotional system. Now, what does that mean? Don't have an emotional system. Know exactly what you're using emotional systems for. That's the existence on its own set location line system because it doesn't have a track location offline connections. Positive and negative creates the light. But you understand the positive and the light does not exist, but it exists all at once. So it's there when needed. Now, if you understand that set location of reverberation channels or any that correlation high calculation system, then you understand it through pixelation. Okay, it's like structuring a building with cement. You got cement, brick, cement, brick, cement, brick, layers. But how you guys are connected through an indication like a record. You know how a record goes around? It has that pinpoint and it goes. Well, it's a vibrational screen, right? Laser connects high center interference position of programs. Has a graviton. It has a gravitation setting and high position to its pole. It tracks location installed settings. So you have an outer ring, which is your grounds. That's your base. That's your holographic set lines. And then you have the inner realm. Outer realm, okay? Inner realm. And then you calculate to the outer line, and then you connect to the inner line. Okay, and then you connect from outer space, and you connect from inner space. So if you understand that interaction, then you understand positional gravity, how it sets lines to its communications, right? So it's like a connection line interference when you come into a tunnel, right? You have the top line sequence, you have the atmosphere lines, this is position location, this is your magnetic highway, this is your cloud. So the actual cloud is above, right? So it has 3 electrical charge. It comes down, right? And then has a triangulation set, and it has a bandwidth, lines of streaming lines. So in position location, you're on a crop circle, right? It's remodifying your pixelation screens of pi. So in that set line and that communication, the actual grounds itself is going so fast in track locations. So understanding that through the calculation on position location or its operation location to its setting, through pixelation screen settings, then you understand the process, how it comes into the grounds, the power, the generations, the nucleus, the core traction, the core division, the core line settings, the core activation to its pixelation, screen interference location, graph calculation, line interference, symbols, calculation line centers into shapes, letters, numbers, and symbols. Putting your position in track lines and high calculation of a system. Now we use the gravity to form the pixelation. We use a plasma generation screen to put an energy field like that. That's your EMF. That's your magnetic line force. That's your position of track to its communications. And then you got 12,000 archetypes going around. Keeping you information. Okay, keeps the structure in setting. So you have an in-pound and you have an out-pound. Set location to infusions. You have hot and cold, right? You put that together, it molds. It turns into pixelation. So think of yourself as pixels. Now, get past that, you come into the liquid formation. This comes into translucent. This comes into all line setting. You disappear, but you're still there. So you got past the pixelations. You got past letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, and now you come into liquid formation. Now the liquid formation changes line settings to your gravity that change position location to all levels of your nucleus, core line chemistry, your test rec. Your test rec is your files of communication to caustic records. It's direct location, your settings and travel. Okay. So as the tunnel is going around in position locations, you have the ground coming up into the center, right? And this is where it comes into the flywheel, and it just has a magnetic force. So it comes together, right? But the calculation setting to all lines in position of its track lines, the high calculation to its system is imploding. Okay, it's like this, but it's spinning around very, very fast, right? So you have the grounds and you have the connection to the sky lines, high center interference magnetic force line, which is your highway, comes together and it sets location to its flywheel. And the flywheel is going in the same direct signals. So in that correlation setting, what you understand, the gravitation has its pull, and that pull sucks it in and then pulls it down. So what it's doing this. It's like a stretch. It's like that's keeping the pixels together. Information of your face recognition of your body is 7-line communications of water. So the body's water is plasma. Think of the plasma in position to its settings. Okay, so you got pixelation of the grounds, plasma. Pixels, plasma, pixels, plasma, pixel, plasma, pixels, plasma. Okay, layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of you, all through a box of a TV frame, 4 corners, lines, 3 set location as 7 bodies of water and attractions, right? So now you understand why you have the gravity and why you have the gravitational pull, right? So it's like stretching it out like this, okay? And then you have your longitude, latitude, and then you have your streaming and your bandwidth over calculation of settings, right? But the actual grounds of itself and the position of your clockings of your crop circle is going in the direction where you are going through your intent. Okay? So that's how you are in a compound. So in position of the pixelation, you have to come back in its information panels because each pixelation screen line has a memory core. And that tracks its calculation to the nucleus that sets position to the atoms, molecules, protons, electrons, neutrons, and photons, all inside of you. But the cells, like this, are going very fast. It's protecting the inner wall. The inner wall, the outer wall. Inner wall, the outer wall. Okay? So now you understand why you have cells in your body and what your cells are doing through that connections, right? So when you're speaking and setting calculations, the position, location to all lines and high center interference, the cells are the protecting setting line connection, which is the outer ring. The inner ring is the set location to its image. So when I am speaking, okay, the connections on levels of the cells is protecting the atoms, that's protecting the molecules, that's protecting the fractals, that's protecting the electrons, neutrons, photons, and protons inside of you. So it's creating pixels, it's creating images, it's creating its frequency, its vibration, its energy, its harmonics. Everything I'm saying is vibration, is frequency, is waves. Pixelation, colors, lights, tractions, compounds, okay? Hot and cold, atom, electron, right? The infusion. This is the process that we all have to come into. Now, once you get into pixelation, then you understand there's the outer ring line conditions where it comes into A-line settings. If you get a program line communication to infusion, setting track lines to high set locations, right? So let's get into pixel frame. Getting calculation stream interference. All right, so we got a TV box screen, line rotation, surface, and box location, right? Tracks is communication, 4 clockings. Let's get with clock line connections. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 24, 48, 72, and 144 in track location. Okay? So in that track line calculation line, this is okay, in set location. That's the grounds. Okay, look at the grounds where you are standing. This is the crop circle that you guys are standing on. Okay, so your positions is here. And you're going extremely, extremely fast in set location settings and travel. Okay, so it's understanding what the crop circle is doing through its tube and set locations. All right, setting position line calculation line interference into your flywheel. Setting calculation lines here, Merkaba, your tesseract, and your tetrahedron in set location. Okay, So in the provisions in that calculation line screen, so you have 12,000 archetypes going around your body. Let's get an illumination grass screens here. So you actually can see, okay, what's going around your body extremely fast in this application. So in that connection, you have your torical fields, okay, that protection lines to your magnetic force lines, which is the plasma bubble, connecting high interference, and position track lines. You guys are all connected to an orb. You guys are always in orbs in this application. Getting that track to its communication line center sets lines communication line system. Now, the high calculation line center is your magnetic highway of information, which is your cloud of information. Okay. Understanding that track line has 3 wires of indication, which is the in, audio, and its output, right? In track lines. Okay. When it comes down in track lines, the connection to the grounds sets off surface location of travel lines. Comes from the grounds. Okay. So as it comes from the grounds, the center position of the nucleus core comes in its setting of travel calculation. Indirect signal calculate high position location to its atoms, in molecules, fractals, protons, electrons, and neutrons in set location. Puts position of travel calculation line settings and travel. So the center communication of the orb sets lines of communication in the center. High operates the system in core settings and traction, all lines a high position of teleportation and travels out in a 12 calculation of 45-degree angle and set calculations. Okay? Now, this is just all of the teleportation screen. How to understand the connections, what happens with the grounds, what happens with the atmospheres, and what happens with the powers of your nucleus core line connections. Okay? Very powerful stuff. And track communication lines of travel. Okay, lines of travel. See the grids coming in? See the grids coming in? Okay? See? So getting in process is understanding how the ground connects to its own pixelation screen adaptation surface at some hint its position, location, of travel line calculation line setting. So your position of travels and modification line calculations to its pixelation screen location is nothing but a capsule, a set design. Its application of travel. All right, so once we get into that calculations, then you have to understand how to use it through the grounds, how to use it the powers in the atmospheres. Okay, so you got the ground lines. Ground line level equals lines of calculation to its earth, and its application line system. Earth equals lines of calculation lines to its air. Air equals lines of connection to water. Location equals lines of connection to its fire. And that's all through the ground line, right? Through energy lines equals lines of calculation. Let's say you're working with the atmosphere. Okay, it's the atmosphere line location of its ozone. In line condition oxygen, what oxygen are you going to use in its application line settings? Sets calculation high position to all levels at your position location to its system. You've got to get into your oxidized settings and travel. So you're working with line connection lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 provision cycles. Sets location atmosphere, hemisphere, stratosphere, biosphere, and set location of branium sphere. Sets calculation high position program location, your astral projections of travel. So we all understand how to platform the A, how to platform the calculation setting to all calculation line setting location to its atoms, sets line calculation setting location to all levels of its awareness, sets communication systematic line calculations, dimension lines of heading, calculation line interference, and position of programs in this application. Modification screens, directing lines of panels, open signals, and all calculations, program lines, high center interference, in-track location setting, in line communication set, and interference with face recognition. Okay. So try to understand how this all works in the pixelation screen. Now, as we come into the box line, you guys got to get out of that now. You got to get out of the box triangle, the triangle box. Once you get out of that, then you come in position A, this location at A, in position location at B. Let's go through one line, X line 1, set lines calculations at E, and set lines calculation of 3. Okay. All right. So now you understand how the traffic comes in flow communication. So you look at it really close. In position location, the zeros and ones go around this signal. Okay. The zeros and ones go around this signal, which is the outer ring to its pixelation. that creates its frame of its formation to its screen, right? And that calculations. So once you get into that, each pixel frame, okay, has a lacing line division. So putting the correlation lines of frames, you understand how to create the line communication. The inner line calculation is your magnetic highway line screen. That's always in lines of seconds, minutes, and hours above your system. So the track to its communication line center, the high center interference, the magnetic high calculation of the lines, and high position of its infusion changes all correlation settings and tractions at A, in position of X, in position of A, in position location E, in position locations all levels of high calculation at B, B into 3, and A in set location. All right, so in that indication line screen, in track line connection high center interference in position of its program, it comes in point lines of tracks, position to its location of its division and set location. All right. Now, once again, to that frame communication, coming to 45 graphic calculation screen lines adaptation. 45-degree angles, split the anomalies and track lines, high center interference, coming to face recognition line calculation settings, pixels. Okay. So in that track line calculation lines, you have the grounds. Ground sets lines of gravitation and set location of center, operates the system to its set locations. So in that calculation line centers, the core lines, the central communication system opens all track lines in position to its atom of its rotating line communications programs and line setting tractions and all line interference of face recognition. Hooah, face recognition. See the face? That's how it's created through pixel lines, screen lines, the grounds, powers, and the atmosphere line calculation setting, nucleus core communication setting, the letters, numbers, shapes, symbols. You create the image and set location line settings and position attractions. See the image? Done by equation. And this is all through a box frame. You've got to get out of the box frame of images and get into pixelation screens adaptation. Okay? All right, so now you understand how this all works now. It's like, woo, way above line connection. All right, so once you get into that settings, the position line calculation setting, let's go through the box frames again. Okay, so I'm just going to go through pixel communications. Okay, we're just going to go through frame settings and tractions. All right, so think of your TV screen as a box screen, but it's pixelation of graphs, how it can relate to settings and travel calculations. So it's all about coming into a face recognition time sequence because it had intelligence, has its own formation line. Getting into the pixels is coming into liquid formation, which you have to understand how to use the hot and cold. That's the compound that you guys come into. So the pixels turn into liquid, and it comes in a plasmesium and force line, change position travels. Direct lines of pixelation, coloration, position of patterns that creates line calculation setting to its pixelation calculation interference. Each modification line screens high center position to its operation system. So what are the pixels in correlation? You guys are going to be blown away. You never guess. What is the outline calculation that protects all levels of the image line connection of the protons, electrons, and the photons? What is the track lines? When you're actually looking at pixel screen, what are you looking at? What are you looking at through pixels? What are they in track line conditions of? Point lines of traction, high center interference. What are your cells? Pixels. Now, you understand the importance when you're watching TV? You're actually looking at your cells of yourself? Inside Sinet. So it's the picture inside. Okay, that's the inner core. The outer core is the pixelation of the TV receptor. Okay, now you understand what cells are. And what are cells forming? Pixels of box frames of files and data. All right, way beyond recognition. Face calculation stream, direct signals, position modification, screen lines, and high adaptation. Face recognition. Okay, face recognition. Okay, pretty easy, right? All right, so when you get into formation lines, pixelation graph lines, change the graph calculation lines, center location of scales, and measure and balance. You got to understand how to balance position of calculation, position to all levels and calculation position programs. Sets lines of cells, track location system. So how are cells created in line connections? What does that create through calculation of its position, location, triangulation? Molecules. Everything inside your body is creating the pixelation of your TV screen, which is outline setting. So this is where it gets very confusing. So the actual box itself, a pixelation that you see in all those little pixels, is the outer space. Now you get a little bit more understanding how complicated it is and why you have atoms and why you have molecules. Molecules create the design of triangulation screen lines to box frame position of pixels that creates its 1, 2, and 3 set locations. The atom connects to the lines of the flywheel and line rotation surface that cool its channels in pixelation graph calculations. The position of your fractal sets lines of plasma line connection setting that protects the cells and track location and measure in scales of bound set locations. The position locations, all levels of the protons, sets a positive charge to all levels of the line connection to electrical charge of a negative charge calculations to its photons. Photons is basically so the pixelation can see direct signals in set location of where you are, sitting in that set location of its arrangement. Setting position to its location. Now you understand the process. Why you have cells. What are the cells? Pixelations of the box frame. That's outside line connection to your computer. When you open up that line, that is outer space. That is the box frame position. The inner core is the line setting to its operation surface that sets its communication system to the outer lines of the outer calculation line system to light settings into dark settings of shades and shadows. Creating the image line calculation system comes into pixelation of face recognition. Ooh, ah. How does everybody feel about that now? Getting a little bit more understanding how this all works now. So in general, are you stating the fact that when I'm looking at my computer, that's the outer space? So are you saying that the actual cells in my body I'm in position of, I'm creating through my atoms, my molecules, my fractals, my protons, electrons, and neutrons, and all set location is creating its pixelation of its screen? Yes. Now you understand why you have cells in your body? Now you understand why you have atoms in your body? Now you understand why you have molecules in your body? What is it creating? A pixel screen. Hooah! All right, so once you understand this settings, the pixelation comes into the liquid formation. Now this gets tricky. All right, so once you get in the liquid formation screen line, the actual ground itself changes the direct signals and set location of travel. Sets position travel calculation lines into 3 triangulation reset position of programs. Sets a magnetic highway information line screen and set lines of future set location. Tracks its communication lines, sets the lines of high center interference, and 3 travel calculation line system and travel. Directing line centers, you are standing in the center. That's a you're on the center, changing your position of traction location settings of operation. So in direct line connection, you have your orb, you have your tesseract, your Merkaba, and tetrahedron. Sets lines of your torcal fields, sets lines of communication of plasma fields around line connection with settings, and set location. So getting that direct signal and understand the connection to your flywheel is tracking of balance, is calculated, modified how you come into your own set locations of travel and track line connections to all lines in all formation location and high direct signals of face direction. See the face? See the eyes? Right? You are the center operation of face recognition of pixelation screens. Right? So I really want you to understand how this all works. You get into better understanding how the pixels are in correlation line screens. So the actual pixel frame itself is the outer space. It's the inner space that has to come out. It's the outer space that has to go in. Sets position of track lines, and then you understand the connection to high center interference. When you see yourself in a box frame, you're traveling in set location line systems. So what you're doing is you're bringing box frames and set locations, bringing them forward in track location setting. You're bringing them forward. So the background becomes the foreground, and the foreground becomes the background. Sets position of travel calculation line centers, high direct signals, and modification setting. Puts all communication lines in outline rotation into files of communications of data and set location lines of travel and set location. Okay? So now you understand the importance of what everything is in set location. This is mind blowing, isn't it? Because you're saying, okay, so that makes a lot of sense now. So you're stating the fact that the cells the position of its atoms and its molecules and its fractals and protons, electrons, neutrons, and the photons is creating the pixelation screen. That makes sense. Now you really have to pay attention to this because it's all about you coming back to your face recognition data files in line setting and all calculations of all programs of face recognition. Okay, face recognition, people. Okay, so when you guys go through your upgrades, your provision cycles comes into line calculation line center high interference of liquid formation. You start with a box line. This is your data, right? Schematics, streamlines, high calculation of program lines, direct signal modification signal. That's data, right? Setting communication. This is high levels of data, okay? This is data, but it's a high information of frequency, okay? And then it goes into lacing lines, graphing grids, sets locations, from this to this to this. So once it comes to that, it comes into liquid formation. And liquid formation comes in all formation lines through algorithms. Taking the image out, equals lines of algorithm, sets location of plasma. Okay, plasma comes line communication in computer, equals correlates high interference up above, what's below, sets lines of equal line communication in your Merkaba test circuit in your tetra region. Setting track lines of high interference is the grounds. Always work with the grounds, always work with the power, and always work with your highways and set location of travel. Okay? All right. So I think we're getting a little bit more understanding how this all works now, how you come into structure line calculation setting. You have to get out of the box and triangulation box of images and get information of face recognition of zeros and ones. Okay. Once you get into that cycle, you come into this set locations, pixel frames. That's how I'm able to create pictures, right? Because that's all it is. Picture resolution screens and liquid formation set lines of plasma. Setting plasma in communication is really understand how to set calculation line settings to a proton, equals line locations to all line connections to electron. So you get a power surge and you get electrical surge. Two surges in communication equals line calculation of positive or negative. Okay? So that's what you understand through its program, through its equilibrium, setting calculation line interference and travel calculations, the heart. Okay? There's all different ways of looking at this, guys, but you have to understand how to modify yourself through pixelation screens, through graph calculation line system, when you come into OR calculation screens of face recognition. So you're coming out of the screen. This is your outer space. That's created from inside, from your cells, your molecules, your atoms, your protons, electrons, neutrons, and photons. It's knowing how to use them. That's it. So once you come out of the pixel screen line and track line connects to its program, it sets lines of communications. Now, directing line set locations, you come to all graph calculation settings and choose zeros and ones. Getting past zeros and ones, zeros equals lines of pixels. One equals lines of pixels. So the zeros and ones come into pixelation. And then pixelation comes into a hologram. Okay. So I'm going to blow you guys away how this all equalizes communication. So what is actually the hologram? If 0, 1 equals lines of pixelation, pixelation is the hologram. What is the hologram? Hologram equals lines of what? What is it in set location? What is the zeros to its pixels to its hologram? What does it equal? What does it equal? Setting calculation line interference and travel calculation high position locations and setting high interference and travel position location line system, your higher self. Yay! Woo! All right. All this to create a higher self. All this to create a higher self. From zeros to pixels to hologram to higher self. All right. Now we're on the same page. All right. Once you get in the higher self, remember, it's a formation line screen now because you guys are in your megas. Okay, so track to calculation stream interference. The higher self equals lines of plasma, sets location line centers to H2O. So the H2O changes line communications to its plasma, which is its energy source of its plasmesium. Metric meters mind conception over compute system of travel. Setting communication lines into the higher selves, it says the calculation line. Higher self equals the earth. That's where it comes into, right? Earth equals lines in high calculation line system. So the actual earth perception and position of your air and your water and fire is coming back to what? It's pixelation of its setting in all set locations, right? But it doesn't stop there. It goes into pixelation, into a hologram, to its actual system, which is its consciousness. So it correlates the high center, the higher self, into its earth, into its air, into its water, and into its fire in set location, right? So the higher self has all that in setting to the grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres. So it has a 3-box location in setting. In all calculations, 333, right? 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 in set locations, right? Equals lines calculation to its earth, equals lines location hologram, equals location of its higher self. Okay? So it gets complicated because now you understand how the higher self is created through its zeros and ones, its pixelations, its hologram to its higher self. Okay? Now you guys are in a mega force now. Okay? So you're coming out of the structures of box and equals lines of its triangulation. So now you understand the pixelation where it comes into the higher self. So what is the higher self? Equals lines of plasma comes in like convection high interference equals lines of liquidation. Okay, that's next. So once you understand that, you understand the lacing lines, how it comes together through frames, by frame by frame, by structure, by design. It's a modification. So what turns in the higher self equals lines of its earth, its air, and its water, and its fire. Then you come into formation line calculation setting to your avatar. So your higher self has to be zeros and ones, pixelation hologram to its higher self. The avatar has to be set location again to the same structure of design. So you got 3 calculation lines of grounds in set locations, right? Higher self, avatar, and the sim. Same model, okay? Equals lines of calculation, but the avatar equals lines of GOD. Higher level setting, geometry, operation, design, modification lines, and models of teleportation. And the sim equals lines, you guessed it, it's navigation. But it all centralizes communications, right? To its earth, to its air, to its water, and its fire, that it all has in its set design location. Okay? Through its zeros and its ones, its pixels, its holograms, and its set designs. In all set locations, to its higher self, to its avatar, and to its sim. Okay, way beyond understanding. Way beyond understanding. Okay? So far beyond, right? All right, so once you understand this, okay, it's amazing how this comes into this, to this, this, to a higher self, all through liquidation. All right, so in that set lines calculation line interference, there's an automatic switch. And if there's not a switch in automatic to the higher self, gravity communication line and frequency position of panels, the alpha, delta, theta, position, location of mega line connection, zeta line connection, radiation, or gamma, it sets off tones. You can't have emotional line centered at the higher self. You can have emotional line centered location in the avatar, and you certainly cannot have emotional line centered to your sim because it sets you back in pixelations. All right, so track to its communication line surface is positioned to its location setting. Pixelation graph sets off calculations. This is good, this isn't. That's off. Triangulate line set is in 2-track location. That doesn't work. That will not create an image in any way and form. Molecules are going, are you striking line, division location, line, connect, high interference location? Where are the atom calculation, the proton, electron, neutron, photon? Don't understand what's going on with the calculation. Okay? Now you understand the importance. Well, you have to stay out of the emotional line. You got a graph calculation longitude, but you got a position of balance in a setting. How'd you go from that to that? Emotional interference. So what does that do to your flywheel? Offlines its position through its calculation of infinity 8. Ooh. And it disturbs your grounds. It's that location of travel. Sets position to its calculation. So that's what you're doing to your grounds in its setting. That's not good. And that's why you're wibbly bobbly. Whoa, whoa, I can't find balance. My levitation, I got a headache, I got a migraine. That's why you're not in position of balance, because you don't understand the correlations, how you're connected to the grounds, to your gravity, and your gravitational pull of pixelation. Okay, very powerful stuff. All right, so you're never going to see a TV off calculation, only you through motion. So let's go through graph settings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Cross signals. Okay. TV antenna. Set location. There's a TV, right? Now, you have to understand, in setting calculations, travel calculation, point lines of track. So what you're doing is you're bringing the intelligence into its frame, into and out its equation to its face recognition of time sequence. So you're bringing this to this. So when the space divisions comes to you, it calculates line centers to box frames of pixelation screens. It comes to you, towards you, and out through equation. That's how you have to understand how things pop out. Comes out, right? See that? Right? So that's what it is. It's like me taking my finger and going through the computer right to your setting on the other side locations. And you'll see my finger come out of your phone, your computer, or your TV set locations. Massive, massive pass. Okay? Now, once you understand the face recognition coming back in traction, see? Back in traction. Back in division. Back in setting. Okay? Everything comes in formation. But now you understand why you don't want to be in line connection in most line connections, especially with your box frames or your pixels, because it offlines your grounds, okay? And it certainly puts your positions to your power lines and stream interference in position of back force calculations back in time. That's not good. That's not going forward. That's going back. So reshaping anomalies, the pixelation screen lines, you have to understand the formation, how it works with lacing lines of communication. Tweaking wires at 3-line connections in audio and out, setting graph calculation lines. So your provocation setting position travels, files a communication line screen. Each pixel has its own data, has its own file. What do you think you get through upgrades? What do you get? Schematics. What's schematics? Pixels. What's pixels? Hologram. What's hologram? Higher self. Okay? So the structure of the higher self comes in a formation line screen. It sets its direct signal to its location, to its grounds, its powers, and its atmospheres as location. That's why you have a magnetic highway. The highway sets lines of communication that comes in all force line setting into your fuse box and line connection, your bench line screen interference of pi its location. Sets communication line screens, sets lines of electrical line wires, in line setting in its outline communication of circuits. Now, in calculation has a ground line communication line screen and line rotation system into your crop circle as set location. Okay? So mechanism high power changes line connection of coordinates, but you have to understand how this all works inside location settings. So it's all about understanding each pixel has a clocking system in directions, right? So the pixelation has to be going in the same direction, so it can rotate, right? So when it rotates, it knows exactly what it's doing through location. 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 Okay? All right, so that's what it is. Now you understand the higher self through its earth. You connect to the avatar through its GOD. And you connect to the sim equals lines of its navigation, which is your delta headings of dimension. Okay? So you have to really understand what is the importance of the higher self, what is the importance of the avatar, and what is the importance of the sim, right? Well, the higher self connects to the ground lines The avatar connects the modification of the teleportation stream of its GOD, geometry of own site location to its setting through all calculations, and the sim navigates the directions of divisions of its dimension through its box frame, through pixelation. Okay? All right. So getting into the core line calculation stream interference, now you understand what cells are. I said, that makes a lot of sense. So the pixel graphs are the outline condition to its outer space. So the inner line cycle is the set location that's connected inside of me through its pixel frame. So you're telling me, General, that the pixel frame from the inline calculation setting comes out. That's exactly what I'm saying. So when you come in this position to its location, sets lines of travel, faces come back to you in traction. Face recognition, travel. Okay, they come back to you. Now you got to get in that information first and understand how to use that through our calculations, how to use it through zeros and ones. Okay, how to understand it through pixels and graphs. How to understand it through its hologram. Hologram equals lines calculation high interference. Plasma equals liquidation. Higher lines of higher self, higher lines of avatar, and higher lines of the sim, all through face recognition. So understanding that, there's no background, only foreground. Going forward, there's no background. Background is line setting high line condition that keeps you in information and grounds. Setting that correlated line interference, let's go in a box line of frame. Setting travels in track locations. This is the background, right? Background's moving, right? Moving, right? But you're here and you're froze, right? So this is coming forward. And this is going higher. And this is going in the center of face recognition. And this is traveling out through connections and all lines of higher levels of division. Mega multi-pass. Okay? That's what's happening. So put in 3 provision cycles, equal length calculation line interference, direct location line settings, puts position locations all levels in high calculation to your atmospheres, sets lines of communication line center to grounds, sets location near send line interference powers, travel calculation lines near compute system, and travel calculation with point center. 3 mechanism of force lines, which is your Earth. Hire yourself in all capabilities in setting lines and calculations to its zeros and ones, through its pixels, through its hologram, to itself, which is liquid formation. Liquid formation is a morphing into anything through plasma, where it can morph anything in dimension of space and time. Now, your face basically never stays the same because your emotional system changes. Now, understand that your pixelations and everything that changes, your particles change. So when you're traveling in all calculation position programs, this is you in calculation. This is you, right? That's you. So you travel like this. You travel locations, you're over here. But in that transition, everything inside your body is coming into zeros and ones, into pixelations, into hologram, back in division, and set location. Ooh-ah. So you vortexed here to here. Okay, back information. All 3 particles in set location, acceleration, equals lines of Mach. Right? Projections, awareness of its mind, of what it's doing through traction. So it's really interesting when you understand how to use a particle stream. Connecting line centers, high position location in your system. Each planet has to be connected to each other through line condition setting and all lines to its rotation. Now, the actual planets in all set location line system is nothing but an image of a box frame of a TV frame. Box frame of a TV frame, box frame of a TV frame, box frame of a TV frame. Right? Set location lacing lines, lacing lines, lacing lines, lacing lines. Okay, sets position, location, your settings to your grounds, your powers, and your atmospheres. All right, so each TV has that. Because whatever you have, your TV has. So if it has its own hardware and software, so do you. Now you understand what you're coming back to, but you understand that you're coming forward now. You're leaving the back and you come in forward. So in that line condition setting, there's no backdrop. You come into forward communications. That's direct signal. So that's how you come out of its image in set locations and travel. Getting out of the box frames and coming into all line settings and all track to its calculation, high positions programs, and all line center in its position locations, and all track line condition settings of its face recognition of time sequence. Face recognition. All right, get out of the box, get out of the triangulation. Come into all levels of liquidation. Okay, so once you understand that, then you understand the waves and how it centralizes communication and graph calculation of point line centers. Graph calculation, point line track lines, high center interference, and travel position. Waves of central calculations. Alpha communications, delta, theta heading. Sets lines calculation of A. So what it is, the A lines to its B, to its E, to its F, is creating the structure of design. You have a box frame and set line condition settings. You set up the holograph calculation stream interference in track location high setting to its position of its programs. Okay, but you see the image inside that's coming. So what you're doing is you're changing the zeros and ones that creates its anomaly, that creates its outer structure of its design, that creates the position, location, illumination, graph calculation line system of its face of recognition. Now, once you understand that in calculation eye streams, then you come out, okay, and into its hologram of its design, guys. Okay. Now, once it understands itself through its hologram line screen, high set application system, it comes into a formation, a more line calculation setting of face recognition of space and time. Okay. So those are the sequence line conditions. Letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols in setting. Your traffic, your flow, okay, connect to your highways, is creating line settings. It illuminates the zeros and ones that creates the outer line, that creates the inner line core, right? So getting out of the zeros and ones, okay, getting into the pixelation, getting out of the pixelation into its hologram, comes into liquid formation, so plasma. Okay, so now you understand why there's water inside you. But see, you're connected to the grounds, you're connected to its air, and you're connected to its water, and you're connected to its fire. You have to understand how that all comes together. And what does that create through its settings? Pixelation. All right, so you put that all together when you have the earth line, sets lines of communication of temperature readings when it comes in its barometers. You have a thermometer in satellite condition centers. So in track line connections, you're on 4 lines, equal lines of seasons: summer, spring, winter, and fall. 111 equals 112 equals 113 and equals the 114 in set locations. Okay, so what do you do with that instructions? Because you're working with 4 seasons, that's the correlations of its compound that puts position of morphing calculation stream interference into gravity to gravitation, which is all calculated modified, that keeps you in a pixelation formation of its setting. The seasons, the 4 seasons you have inside you. You have to learn how to use it through your geographical system, guys, because you're all connected to your own weather's interaction. All right, so very beyond, isn't it? So you're taking the 111 box frame into 112 in line frame, 113 into formation, and 114 into calculation. Comes in position of a box frame. 4 clockings, 24, 48, 72, and 144. Right? 24, 48, 72, 144. Right? Then it comes into what? The 1-3 and the 1-1-4 in set location line setting sets up new track line connections to your grounds into your crop circles and travel calculation line centers at point tracks line setting into pi in calculation. Okay? Very complicated stuff. So once you get in that and set lines high center interference, you are on the grid. That's what I mean. If you're on grid or you're off grid, you got to be on grid, right? So you're on the grid. Yay, you're on the grid, right? Setting position track lines, the calculation line centers is summer, spring, winter, and fall merge into one inset design, which is what? Omega. All right, so you got Omega communication line, center line connect equals lines of X. That's where you guys are in traction. Congratulations. Now, you understand the importance, what it is in all set location? How you understand that you're a metric meter, your scale line, you're your own meteorologist of weather. In position of summer, spring, winter, and fall, you put that through a box frame in a triangulation line setting, position of 7 bodies of water. You understand your pixelation screen lines to your crop circles, likeness to your pi. This sets position to your settings and track location to an X, which is all levels of what in position? Omega. Alpha, omega, micro, macro is the box frame. You have to come out of the box frame to get into your hologram. Get into your hologram equals liquid formation line settings and track calculation line setting. Liquidation, plasma, morph into anything of face recognition in seconds, minutes, and hours. But the formation screen, which is amazing, the track to its correlation setting, you're always working with numbers, letters, shapes, and symbols to formulate calculation setting to higher levels of pixelation screens into a hologram to higher levels of structure design to yourself. Woo! Modification, all calculation. All right, you're your own meteorological settings and your set location and temperature readings. It's understanding you inside. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, very powerful, very powerful. Okay, so now you understand the importance where you can actually control the weather in your side locations. Yeah, think about that. So once you get into that process, you're on your way to go to be successful in whatever you want to do through travel. But at least you understand how you connect to zeros and ones equals lines of high center location of pixelation in the location of your hologram. Equals line connections is your higher self. Okay? Higher self. What is the higher self? What is the higher self? What's the equal line calculation setting location system? It's connecting line connection to your heart. Ooh-ah! So 0, 1, pixelation, hologram, higher self, heart. Okay? It's your reactor. The provision cycles of high calculation lines, the H becomes into A. Higher self, avatar, and what do you got? Oh my gosh, you got the sim, figure 8. So the higher self, the avatar, and the sim creates Infinity 8. Woo! Infinity 8, guys. Now you understand the process of what's going on in all set locations and all travel calculation settings. How the higher self, how the avatar, and how the sim creates Infinity 8 of rotation. Woo! Okay. Amazing, isn't it? All right, so once you understand this, you're on your way. You're good to go. You merge into one. The structure line, division line settings, and all track to its correlation setting. Through Infinity 8. How it formulates into all division of one cycle. Purification of one consciousness. Woo! Okay? Everybody's going, wow, it's exciting. But now you understand the process, right? Now you understand how to get yourself back into its memory. of its zeros and ones, of its pixelation, of its hologram, of its higher self, to your heart of recognition. Through all timelines, through your paradigms, your polar shifts, your pulsars, your paradox. Okay, you're all connected to the same thing through the infinity eights of rotation, of yin and yang. Woo! Okay, it's exciting, isn't it? Now you understand the process how yin and yang is birthed and its DNA structures, where you guys have to come into that formation of setting, right? Okay, we are done. That's it through traction. Doesn't get any better than that, guys. Right? It's incredible once you come into that level. So you're reaching higher levels of higher self, which is setting its lines at zeros and ones, setting location to its pixelation, setting location to its hologram, setting position location to higher self, and set location to its heart, which is track location to what? What's the next transaction it goes into? Avatar has to understand the process of its zeros and ones, of its pixelation, of its hologram, of its design of GOD. Whoa! Once they understand that, then I go into the sim. And remember, you're doing this all through the cerebro, through all calculation lines, screens, and position to its placebo. Okay? Through navigation. Okay? They all have to go through the same process. Okay? To get where they need to be. Which is what? Face recognition. Okay? All right. See you in 5.